In a recent article on a major news website called Healthline, they had a feature about intermittent fasting for beginners, intermittent fasting 101. In this edition of Science or Nonsense, we'll explore which parts of their article were good, correct, versus which parts were incorrect. Here's the article itself. This is not anything personal against the author. I've left the author's name specifically out of this because I want it to be about the content. I don't know the author. I'm pretty sure they don't know me. So in more detail, here's what you can expect to learn. I'll give you comments on select parts of the article that I thought may need some elaboration or where I agree or disagree, etc. And then I'll give you my overall conclusion about intermittent fasting, not related to this article specifically. So before we jump in, who am I? My name is Igor. I've been a personal trainer since 2006, and I've been teaching other personal trainers in my methodology since 2013 by speaking at some of the world's largest personal training conferences. As well, I've done over 400 wellness presentations to some of Canada's largest corporations, including IBM, Bosch, American Express, University of Toronto, Investors Group, and others. I'm also the author of the Amazon best-selling book, The No BS Guide to Intermittent Fasting for Women. If you want to buy it on Amazon, just click on the link in the description below, and you'll be taken straight to Amazon. So if you want to learn when I publish more videos about exercise, nutrition, intermittent fasting, as well as women's health, click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So here is one segment to the article. It says, IF, or intermittent fasting, doesn't specify which foods you should eat, but rather when you should eat them. This means it's not really a diet. This is absolutely correct. I like that they actually highlight that it's not a diet, but rather just it's a logistical choice, not a nutritional choice. Very good. In another sentence, they say weight loss is the most common reason that people try IF. I would partially agree with that. I would just change the sentence to weight loss is the most common reason that people say they do IF, because there are other reasons, and they may supersede the weight loss. Here are other reasons why they try intermittent fasting. One, really, to sound cool. Two, is because there's a guru who said it's good. Usually that guru is Jason Fung. And three, because they're in a cult. That cult is called intermittent fasting. And I have an entire video about the 3 most popular fitness, nutrition, and health cults, which is on your screen right now, as well as in the description below. They go on to say, by reducing the amount of time you can eat, you'll likely consume fewer calories without realizing it. Again, absolutely. That is the hope, but it's not a foregone conclusion. But if after a few weeks of intermittent fasting, you're not losing weight, you haven't lowered your calories. You're just eating the same number of calories in a narrower window. That's just common sense. Keep in mind that the main reason intermittent fasting helps with weight loss is that it makes it easier to eat fewer calories overall. If you eat massive amounts during your eating periods, you may not lose any weight at all. Absolutely correct. Again, I like that they emphasize that it's all about calories. Calories are king and protein is queen when it comes to fat loss. They keep highlighting the health benefits of intermittent fasting. One of them, they say insulin resistance. Intermittent fasting can reduce insulin resistance. This is true, but not unique to intermittent fasting. Lots of things lower insulin resistance. Exercise also improves insulin resistance. So do certain supplements like ginger. They also say it improves inflammation. Again, this is correct. But again, this is not unique to intermittent fasting. Lots of things reduce inflammation. So for example, you have to ask yourself, are you inflamed to begin with? And to answer that question, we have to distinguish between cardiovascular inflammation and joint inflammation. Cardiovascular inflammation shows up on blood tests. The 3 major cardiovascular inflammation markers are hs-CRP, or high sensitivity C-reactive protein, homocysteine, as well as fibrinogen, which measures your risk of clotting. By contrast to cardiovascular inflammatory markers, there are no blood tests for joint inflammation of osteoarthritis. There are blood tests for joint inflammation of rheumatoid arthritis and other forms of arthritis, but for osteoarthritis, which is the most common form of arthritis, there are no blood tests. So we need to distinguish between those two. Moving on, the Mediterranean diet also lowers inflammation. So does the paleo diet. So does exercise. So again, lowering inflammation is not something that's unique to intermittent fasting. Lots of things lower inflammation. They move on to say that fasting can disrupt female hormones, affecting menstruation and overall health. This is indeed correct, but with a window of a 16-hour fast and 8 hours eating, this is not a problem. If you're doing like a 1-day fast regularly, that could interrupt female hormones, and even then, not in all females. So there are a lot of nuances to this. Then go on to say, research has shown that it can help treat hyperandrogenism in people with polycystic ovarian syndrome. This is also correct. But again, this is not unique to intermittent fasting. You can get similar results doing other things. Here's a study titled 8-Hour Time-Restricted Feeding Improves Endocrine and Metabolic Profiles in Women with Anovulatory, let's just call it PCOS. Here's what happened in the study. Women with PCOS were recruited and put on an intermittent fasting diet. They ate from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Their measurements were taken both in the beginning of the study and after 5 weeks of intermittent fasting. And here is what happened. Their body fat after 5 weeks actually improved by 1%. This is not a bad speed. It's pretty average. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. It's average. Furthermore, that fat came from visceral fat. So a little background on fat, there are two kinds of body fat. There is subcutaneous fat, which is under the skin. That's the flabby stuff. If you see a flabby stomach and you can pinch it, that's subcutaneous fat. Other people have something called visceral fat, which is under the muscle. Some people have a big stomach, but it's round and it's very solid. You can't pinch it, but you see that there's fat underneath there. That's visceral fat. It's that kind of fat that's the dangerous, the inflammatory fat. And it seems like intermittent fasting happens to target the visceral fat more than the subcutaneous fat in women with PCOS. So that's good. Their insulin resistance actually improved by 21%. Quite impressive. And their testosterone levels decreased by 26%. In women with PCOS, that's a good thing because they have elevated testosterone levels to begin with. So intermittent fasting doesn't have favorable effects on women with PCOS. But notice this. In the study, their intermittent fasting was 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The most common preferred way of doing intermittent fasting is the other way. Skip breakfast and eat dinner. However, the results are different. Skipping breakfast is inferior to skipping dinner. It's better to have breakfast and lunch as opposed to lunch and dinner. And I elaborate on all of this in my book in far more detail. Now, furthermore, many of them even normalize their menstrual cycle. So if you notice, 73.3% of participants who had PCOS and they went on intermittent fasting for 5 weeks, they improved their menstrual cycle regularity. Pretty cool, considering they didn't really change their calories all that much, just enough to lose 1% body fat. So the overall conclusion is this. Intermittent fasting is a way of eating. It is not a diet. However, it's not the only way of eating. It's not necessarily the best way, but if it helps you make better nutritional choices, give it a shot. On the list of priorities of what's most important to least important in terms of general health, not just body fat, I'd say most important by far is calories. Below that, probably a tie between protein and fiber. Below that, everything else is just details. Whether you're intermittent fasting or not makes such a little difference, you shouldn't even worry about it. Whether you eat after 6 or you don't eat after 6 makes no difference. Your ratio of carbs to fats makes no difference. Whether you have 2 big meals per day or 5 small meals per day makes no difference. Calories are king, and then protein and fiber are queen. If you want to delve way deeper into intermittent fasting for different things like diabetes, menopause, muscle mass, and more, check out the book in the description below to the Amazon link. Thank you and goodbye.